I still hear your voice at night. Make me feel alright. Jump right back into my life. Cause we could dance the night away. Make me love you through the haze. Ain't no need to be afraid.
Imagine you're home, alone. The house is silent. The television is off. The windows are closed. Then you hear it. Someone calls your name, quietly, clearly. You freeze. You turn around. No one. A few minutes later, the shower runs and the water fills the room with noise. Then again, faint talking, too distant to understand. You listen. The voices disappear. Was someone really there? Or did your brain make a conversation out of random noise?
That scene gives me chills, but it's familiar. Almost everyone has heard a name in a crowd or caught whispering inside a fan. The phenomenon has a name: auditory pareidolia. It's the brain assigning meaning, words, names, voices, to meaningless sound, like seeing a face in a cloud, but with your ears.
What I can't shake is how convincing it feels. The sound doesn't change, only our interpretation does. You listen harder. Your brain hunts for patterns. Suddenly, a hum becomes a whisper. Random clicks become a warning. Why does our mind force language where none exists?
It comes down to how the brain works. Our auditory system is built to predict. We constantly use context and memory to fill gaps in messy signals. Neuroscientists call this predictive coding. Higher brain areas send expectations down to the auditory cortex. When noise vaguely matches those expectations, the brain fills in the rest. That top-down processing is efficient. Most of the time, it helps us understand speech in noisy rooms, but it can also invent words out of static.
So expectations matter. If you're tired, stressed, or primed to expect someone, you're more likely to hear something that isn't there.
Exactly. Fatigue, isolation, anxiety, even mild hearing loss raise the odds. The signal-to-noise ratio is lower, so the brain leans harder on priors, what it thinks should be there. Experiments with sine wave speech and phonemic restoration show how the brain reconstructs missing pieces of speech. Give people a hint, and suddenly meaningless noise turns into clear words.
That explains the mechanics, but what about the scary bits? People who genuinely hear voices, like in psychosis. How is that different?
Great question. Auditory pareidolia is common and usually harmless, brief, context-dependent, and flexible. Different listens yield different words. Clinical auditory hallucinations tend to be persistent, vivid, emotionally charged, and experienced as external and real. If the voices are commanding, distressing, or impairing life, that's a signal to seek professional help. Pareidolia rarely causes that level of conviction or dysfunction.
Are there quick tests people can do if they're unsure whether they heard a real voice?
Yes, simple checks help. Record the noise and listen back later. If it sounds like nothing on the recording, your real-time perception was likely a pareidolic fill. Ask someone else to listen. Change factors. Get more sleep, reduce stress, turn off fans, or run sounds at different volumes. Also consider a hearing check. Even subtle hearing loss changes how you perceive sound and raises pareidolia risk.
Any practical takeaways for listeners worried they'll lose their ears to phantom voices?
Understand it's normal. Your brain is a pattern-seeking organ doing its job. Reduce triggers, treat hearing issues, manage sleep and stress, and don't over-focus on ambiguous sounds. If voices become frequent, convincing, or distressing, reach out to a clinician. Better safe than sorry.
One last thought. The eerie bit remains. If our minds can find voices inside static, how do we know the sounds we trust were ever real to begin with? That question is exactly why we made this show. The boundary between perception and belief is thin. Auditory pareidolia reminds us how active perception is. We don't just receive the world, we interpret it. Thanks for listening to Brain Glitch, where every mystery begins with a story and ends inside your mind. We'll be back with more. So, were those voices ever real? Probably not. But to understand why they felt real, we need to understand your brain.
Your brain, that feels so personal. What's it doing to make a fan sound like someone calling your name?
The human brain has one job: find patterns everywhere, in faces, in sounds, in movement. even in complete chaos. Thousands of years ago, that habit kept us alive. Hearing a predator a fraction of a second earlier could mean survival.
So it favors one kind of mistake over another.
Exactly. It's safer to hear a voice that isn't there than to miss one that is. Scientists call this auditory pareidolia. Your brain takes random sound, a fan, rain, a running tap, radio static, and searches for something familiar, a word, a laugh, your name.
And once it finds the smallest hint, it fills in the rest.
Yes. Just like you can see animals in clouds or faces on the moon, your ears can experience the same illusion. The sound never changed. Your brain did. Sometimes you aren't hearing the world as it is. Sometimes you're hearing the story your brain expected to hear.
That is both comforting and a little eerie. So how often does this happen? Should people worry if they hear voices in the noise?
Usually no. Most people experience auditory pareidolia at some point. It's more likely when you're tired, stressed, or surrounded by constant background noise. Your brain isn't malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what it evolved to do, searching for meaning, even when there isn't any.
The mystery then isn't that you heard a voice, but how fast your brain turned randomness into speech.
Right. Think about it. The world might be far quieter than you think. Your brain constantly fills the silence with words, memories, expectations. So the next time you hear your name in the hum of a fan or whispering inside the rain, pause for a moment.
Ask yourself, did someone actually call me? Or did my brain refuse to accept randomness?
Maybe that's the biggest brain glitch of all. Your ears don't just hear sounds. Your brain transforms them into a reality that feels impossible to question.
And that raises a deeper question. If our brains can create voices out of silence, how much of what we hear comes from the world and how much comes from our minds?
Exactly. Hold on to that thought. Thanks for listening to Brain Glitch, where every mystery begins with a story and ends inside your mind. See you in the next glitch.
After credits teaser. Next time, imagine looking at a complete stranger and suddenly feeling certain you've known them your entire life, not because you remember them, but because your brain creates a memory that never existed. False familiarity.
I still hear your voice at night. Make me feel alright. Jump right back into my life. 'Cause we could dance the night away. Make me love you through the haze. Ain't no need to be afraid.